Roundtable presented by Cinescape Media, where we are going to set topics from all areas. The show, of course, brought to you by the Cinescape Media Network. Be sure to visit us at cinescape.media for a complete listing of all the great podcasts and contents we have available. I am, of course, Dex. Today we are joining at the table with Mike Shea from Mixtape Radio.
Hi.
We got Rowdy Tazi.
Hello.
And, of course, Mr. Sean Harrigan, the new podcast, Eagles Nest. What's going on?
This is whatever noises today.
We are all about the noises today. Sounds like a lot of fun. We're going to get into some technology, a lot of shit going on. How are you guys hanging in there with everything, staying locked in?
I feel like I'm losing my mind more and more every single day, to be honest with you. Dex, I was messaging back and forth with you last night about shows that I was getting ready to watch, and then I'm like, they're not on this week. Yeah, whatever. Like, I'm all pissed off. I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, yeah, this show's not on. She's like, I'm sorry. And then I realized it wasn't Tuesday at the time. It was only Monday. And I'm like, I guess the stuff's on tomorrow then. Just no clue what day it was. Couldn't tell you.
There's no Monday, Tuesdays. It's this day, that day, the other day, yesterday.
Just day.
Anymore. How's it going out there towards the West Coast, Mr. Mike?
West Coast? I'm in Ohio, mother. What are you talking about?
You're more West Coast than we are.
You're that way.
No, West Coast sensibility. I'm all right, man.
You got a 500-mile head start.
There you go. That's Earlier, Sean's asking, Mike, you know what beaches are in Ohio, right? some fucking hick who's never heard of a coastline.
Well, I'll tell you what, man.
You know what was funny? Before we even started this recording, Sean, you weren't even in your seat yet, and Mike was not on the camera in his chair or anything yet, and his stomach was just in front of the camera for like a good.
It just popped up. We just saw the drink getting opened,
and we're just making like
his stomach opened a drink.
Yeah,
it was like
dad jokes ensued.
What do you like? Pop the beer bottle right in his belly button.
I'm drinking cocktails out of a mason jar right now.
Yeah, he's
fancy with the whiskey.
It's because I'm a fucking hick.
Yeah.
Wait. Does this count as being a hick? I got fucking PBR.
Well, that means you don't know.
That just means you're from Levittown.
White trash.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Look, I'm classy right now with my Rolling Rock.
Oh, because that's better.
It's fancy.
Costs more than PBR does.
Listen, it's called the coronavirus budget. 30-pack of PBR, I'm good for a week.
There you go.
But, so this, what we're going to talk about today, this was all on Bill, because Bill decided to add.
What did I do?
We got Dexflix, which we've, I think, mentioned once or twice, my media server. Bill had added the YouTube series, The Age of AI. Have you watched it yet?
Yo, AI was one of the most dominant players of the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, did you see him cross over Michael Jordan as a rookie? Jesus Christ, that guy had some skills.
Isn't that the Kobe move?
Kobe.
Everybody was still doing that.
I watched like the first episode of it.
You only watched the first episode?
Yeah.
Sean, did you get a chance to check it out?
No, not yet. It sounds pretty cool. What'd you say? Robert Downey Jr. is hosting it, right?
So yeah, Mr. Iron Man himself hosted. Now, Mike, have you heard this one yet?
This is the one that's about it's about the Bulls, right? The Chicago Bulls.
No, that's that's that other one. I can't even remember the name of that show right now. Actually.
I know what you're talking.
Well, you should. The Last Dance.
That's it. Last Dance.
Sunday Sports Wrap with Sean actually did a special episode on that on the Cinescape Media Network as well, covering part 1. Look for the subsequent parts coming soon. But I had with this AI show, it definitely sounds pretty cool. And if you're going to have a spokesperson or, a face to, this show, obviously you're going to want somebody like Tony Stark right at the forefront of everything.
Which he makes references to. He does make references to it in the one, I think it was the 4th episode, because I finally put it on. I put one episode on, and then I was up till 3:30 in the morning last night watching like 6 of them. And it's crazy how they showed the different ways the technology and AI can help us. And then they also even touched on it in one episode, which is kind of the talking point here is, are we overusing technology in any areas of our lives, such as sports or things along those lines? Do you guys think we're overusing technology in a way?
Absolutely.
Where do you feel we're using too much technology?
Just it's
the sex robots.
Yeah, there is an episode on it, Sean. It's number 4.
There you go. Number 4, teleportation.
Todd. I think one way right off the bat is it's our source for news, and
fake news.
We don't get an accurate representation of that as far as how everyone is informed. So at that level, it's not being used appropriately, and I would say this is both good and bad, but overall, it just automates so many parts of our lives, some for the good, some for the bad. But, I think, as integrated as we are right now, I think this quarantine has shown, people need to be disconnected at times. They need to hit that reset button. And, I don't know if any kind of mindset will change from this, but I think it's good to relax your mind from the constant stimulation at times.
Yeah, I would agree.
I agree. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay. Fuck you, Sean. No,
yeah.
I think one of the times I really realized we were getting a little too dependent. It's one thing over the years where you see a need that you think there's a technological need that needs to be filled, something that could be improved upon or made more efficient. But I remember the first time I walked into a McDonald's and they had those touchscreen self-service. I was like, okay, what problem is this fixing? Because I still got to wait on my damn food and it's still going to be made wrong. That's not the problem that needs fixing. Okay.
No.
The people at the register weren't the problem. They're taking my order. It's the people in the back making it that are screwing it up. So it's little things like that. To quote Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, it's one big pile of shit. It's not one big turd. It's a bunch of little tiny turds that are stacking up. It's little things where I was playing D&D yesterday. Bear with me. And we had D&D. It's a lot of stuff to keep track of when it's pencil and paper. But nowadays there's so many apps and Discord bots and websites that keep track of all your stats and your rolls and stuff for you. And on one hand, it's like, well, that's cool. It makes things a little bit easier. But at the same time, it's like, but now I'm having less stimulation for my own mind because it's not, having to keep track of all that stuff. It keeps your mind a little bit sharp. So I think there are a lot of areas where, technology's gotten a little too rampant, but I think it's little things, not necessarily any big issues.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I would go along the lines of what Mike is just saying. You look at when Kindles and everything started coming out, nobody reads books anymore. I'm a person that likes to pick up, whether it's a nice leather bound book or just a general paperback, but I like the feel, of the page in my hands. I like to be able to turn it, and I like to be able to, actually hold what I'm reading and ingesting instead of just staring at a screen. I don't know how many of us, we're all wearing glasses of some sort, so I guess we all have a little bit of vision problems. So, staring at a screen for a long period of time, it just really gets to you after a while. So, like you said, Mike, small things like that, or even, especially now with, being quarantined in the house all day, what are we doing? We're picking up our phones all day long. If you have an iPhone, at the end of the week, it tells you your average screen time per day for the week. Now, granted, if I'm putting something on YouTube in the background, if I'm playing a game or something, that's one thing. So my average is up considerably. But my report for last week was almost 8 hours a day. Now, obviously that's skewed, but it's you cut out half of that, and that's 4 hours out of the day you're looking at your phone, which is still quite a lot. So, the situation right now dictates that that's going to be up a little bit, but in general, it's probably not that far off. So, whether we're looking at our phones or our computer screens or playing video games or whatever we're doing, we're not out there. We've been social distancing for quite a long time, if you really think about it. And now you get into these online arguments with people about politics or whatever's going on in the world. And these are all conversations that you wouldn't actually have with people face to face if you were out in a social setting.
Pussy
everybody's a keyboard warrior when they're sitting in the comfort of their own homes, but nobody's actually going to talk about any of this stuff because they don't want to get into an actual confrontation with somebody. So, preach. No. So it's like Bill said also, it's being able to disconnect from our technology and enjoy actual real world sometimes.
That's so one of the episodes that I found interesting is we always talk about sports and it's the fairness of the game, but so you have instant replay and things along those lines. What do you guys feel, is that actually making the game more fair, or are we losing part of the game by spending too much time in replay? Now, I'm curious about Mike on this as well, because you work in television. So your take on that, I'm kind of interested, versus just a layman like ourselves that just watch it on TV. What's the consensus on there? Not dummies, but
I will say, as much of a train wreck as it was, one of the nice things about when McMahon tried to bring back the XFL this year was one of the big things that the XFL was about was making the games not as dauntingly long.
Yes.
Because a single football game will go on for 6 freaking hours. And as the guy who's in charge of running those commercial breaks, that's 6 hours of my day that I am forced to focus only on this football game. It's really hard for me to multitask at my job when we're running an NFL game because, it's so long and there's so many things that can happen. They'll spend 15, 20 minutes with the clock stop reviewing whether or not the guy who stepped on this side or that side of an orange peg. Now, granted, I understand that people want to be fair and they want their stats to be accurate and so on and so forth, but you don't see as much of, and it seems to be football is the main place you see that. You don't see as much of that in baseball, I think.
Not as much.
You've had a lot of increase in technology in baseball over the last couple of years. They've added instant replay for things and coach challenges. A few years ago, hockey added a coach challenge as well. So I think all sports are definitely going the more technology route, and it is adding more time, unnecessary time to the games. You look at baseball, it's you ask anybody today, is it our national pastime anymore? Absolutely not. Nobody watches baseball. Why? Because our attention spans are so short. Nobody wants to watch a game that can last 4 hours.
Yeah, baseball is way too long.
And it's one thing if you're watching a football game, which is high paced action, a lot of intense stuff going on. But a baseball game, on a lazy summer afternoon, where all right, we're gonna have a pitching change. All right, 5 minutes later, all right, another pitching change. We're going to go to a commercial break again. And the game takes forever, and you're adding in these instant replays and challenges and stuff on top of it. Yeah. And everybody's complaining. The games are too long. There's too many games. We need to do something to shorten the time that we're actually watching this. Now, if you're looking at it from Mike's end, where they're running commercials, the TV networks absolutely want those commercials because you're getting paid for that more. But at the same time, you're going to have less people actually watching your programming, lowering the ratings. So, where's the trade-off there?
It's like the Super Bowl. There's absolutely no freaking need. There needs to be 8 hours of pregame. I'm sorry. I don't need 8 hours of somebody saying what the defense needs to do is play better than the offense, because then the offense will get less points on the board, and then their offense needs to play better than their defense to get more points so that they can then in turn win the game.
The football goes into the end zone, and then the end zone is where the touchdown. Boom!
Look, man, I'll tell you what, you get that spider 2 wide banana going on, man.
But I will say,
this is blowing my mind.
But with the baseball thing, I think baseball's always had a bit more of a. The old George Carlin bit, baseball is played in a field, and there's a 7th inning stretch, whereas football's played on a gridiron, and there's armor, and it's always. I think that's kind of how baseball has a very niche fan base, but it's also just kind of a different attitude, I think, between the two sports. But from a technological standpoint, things in baseball are determined a lot more by just simply who got where before the ball was there. As football, it's down to yards and feet and inches, and it gets really mathematical. So the technology almost had to evolve with the game, because again, people are all about accuracy of stats and things like that, and without the technology to check that, who knows what would be happening.
Now, here's an interesting proposal, especially with football. I think, baseball can really do a lot of integrating the technology as well. But where do you see sports and technology merging even more? My proposal is absolutely digitizing the playing field. So, what you say for football, there's a blown call where you had a spot of the ball where we're trying to get a first down, and the refs are coming up that it's they're just this far off, even though the replay shows that they clearly crossed the line, whatever. So if you have a digitized field and then you have either ends of the football that actually have sensors on them, you're going to be able to tell where that ball was exactly and not even have to worry or leave it up to interpretation or a false camera angle. Same thing with baseball. You have a strike zone that changes depending on how short or how tall the batter is. How does that make sense? If your pitcher is going to want the same call no matter who's up there to bat, right? But if you can have an actual digital strike zone like they show on TV where the strike zone is, but if you can have some kind of, and it'd be kind of weird, hard to have like floating sensors of where that is, and have the ball digitized as well, so it knows, it registers if it crosses that strike zone, it's a strike automatically. Something like that. Is there anything else that we can think that sports can do to integrate technology a little bit more?
Yeah,
I think what you're talking about would be a little hard, only because you're putting a sensor in the ball, okay, but then you're throwing it at 98 miles an hour and whacking it with a club. I don't know how well the sensor would survive after that. Geez, the air pressure.
It's got Bluetooth in it.
It's got.
I'm like, honestly,
more like GPS sensor would probably work. I'm curious, Bill.
I'm like not high enough for what Sean is explaining, by the way. There's like sensors and orbs and fucking Bluetooth.
Look, the eyeball has rods and cones in it, right?
Rods and cones.
Electronic fucking grids and shit.
Gridiron.
What are we playing on, like Tron's field or something?
Yeah.
They already tried to digitize the field in the sense we have the yellow and white markers of where it's supposed to be, but that's, give or take a couple feet as well, because the technology has not advanced, unfortunately, enough for that. Now, an interesting aspect of it, if you watch the show on YouTube, they mention that's done by a lot of GPS and camera positioning and things like that. I've read into the technology. Obviously, I'm a huge fucking nerd, so that stuff fascinates me. No! But it's off by a little bit because of the GPS that they use. Now, when you talk military-grade precision, that's when we can get some military-grade precision, that's when you'll see the field digitized. Now, one of the sports that...
Great, there's going to be a fucking bomb in the ball.
We're all talking, sports, football, baseball. That's all the normal things we see. Now, one of the things in that series that they actually touched on was racing. And using AI to tell them when and when not to pit stop, how many tires to take, if they should take fuel, the whole 9 yards. And not only is the AI and the information available to just that driver's team can see every car. Now, that to me seems almost drawing, like you're going over a line where you're going to look at what every car is doing and say, well, I can do this and my car is going to go faster, and not every team's using it. You're no longer, racing used to be a whole thing of intuition, and you're taking human intuition out of a sport that was really based on that.
But at the same time, you have your pit crew that radios in when you should do that too. It's up to the driver whether he wants to listen to their advice or not.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. The guy lost the race. He ended up only getting 6th place because instead of listening to the AI, the pit boss decided, no, I'm going to do this. and then lost because the pit crew decided they're gonna fuck up, and they instead of like 12-second pit time, there were 20 seconds, so they lost like 5 seconds on the lap.
That's just human error. That's ego over the analytics.
Isn't that what happened in cars?
Yes.
Lightning McQueen didn't want a pit stop.
Correct, and he blew both of his tires, and then he won by the tongue just barely touching the line.
Yeah, what a fucking asshole that guy is.
Because all cars have tongues.
Yeah. And sound like Owen Wilson. Wow.
Hey, what? This Hyundai has no tongue?
Yeah, speaking of
Wow.
Speaking of too much technology, I came across an article recently that has a software that can detect whether people are properly social distancing or not, and it can like basically take your vitals through the camera. You know, it can take your body temperature, things like that.
Is that the Google project?
I forget exactly what it was for, but that shit is terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want a camera in somewhere where I don't know where it is taking my bioacoustics and shit. Like, no thank you. That is where this is where technology is scary, because I mean,
Big Brother.
Yeah, when you look at the world after 9/11, with the Patriot Act, they can look at anything that they want, anytime that they want, and you're not even going to know about it. Like, maybe, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, Google came out and said that they had a critical security update in their new version of Chrome. Everybody has to upgrade to it now. If you keep the other one, they describe what hackers are going to be able to do to compromise your system. And the way that I took it was they're basically saying, hey, upgrade to this new version of our browser so we can track everything that you're doing based on the upcoming voting and the elections, because we're trying to get mail-in voting going on. If you don't, this is how we're going to compromise your system, and we're going to use the guise of hackers doing it instead of us. So that kind of shit is terrifying to me. Too much technology there.
It's terrifying, but at the same time too, like, you can't, like, this is the next hurdle, like, that you can't resist, right? Because, like, you got to think cameras are on every street corner and things like that. Like, the Big Brother project's like already here. Like, they're already able to scan from a satellite in space and see your face as clear as day. I mean, just look at Google Maps, Google Earth or whatever. It's been doing it for years. So,
did you ever hear of Project Thor? Check that out.
I know. We talked about that.
Check it out.
Mike looks perplexed. Hold on, Mike looks perplexed. You never heard of this?
Thor?
All right, so basically what it is...
Bill, give him a rundown. Go ahead.
Bill, you want it, or you want me to do it?
Or Sean? Either.
Sean, you can go ahead.
Basically what it is...
Thor is.
Basically what it is a satellite that has the ability to launch an energy weapon on a fixed area that will produce the same amount of damage as a nuclear warhead without the actual chemical effects of it.
No fallout.
No fallout.
So somebody read about Reagan's Project Star Wars and was like, I can do one better.
Yeah. They said,
really what that sounds
hold
like.
my beer. He said, hold my beer, and then went for it.
Well, it's hashtag space. That's the Space Force right there. That's what Space Force is all about.
For them fighting off them aliens. Can't have them aliens.
Nah, it's
them illegal aliens coming in here.
We're being desensitized to the... Get behind your wall, son.
That's right.
Yeah, we're being desensitized to aliens, but again, I've talked about that before.
They just announced, the Pentagon announced last night that there's UFOs. Nobody's talking about it.
Hold on. So that's actually a continuation. This shows that you don't listen to my show. No. Last year...
No, I did.
So last year, the Navy had, they actually call them UAPs. It's not UFOs to the Navy. The Navy admitted it last year, and I think it's Bob Lazar actually went on Joe Rogan and talked about it.
I remember this.
Yeah, so they talked about it, but now the Navy is like, okay, we're going to release the video because they decided that the information on the screen is not going to compromise any of their security or whatever technology that they're using. They decided that it's not going to affect that. So yeah, now we're going to get the videos, and I'm still waiting for Britain. I think it was Britain. They're supposed to be releasing a whole website with all their X files. So that should be interesting as well, because that's some technology that I remember watching years ago. Coming back to the technology we're talking about, I remember watching years ago this video where the guy was, you know, all blacked out. He had the whole the voice where they, you know, masked it or whatever. Exactly. They did that, and the guy was talking about how the fuck do you think we got microwaves? Literally, he said the reason we have microwaves was aliens. Hands down, that's how they were talking about it. So I'm curious to see what happens. Yes, aliens.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what that actually means, like the Pentagon last night, without saying aliens exist, they confirmed the existence of unidentified phenomena, or whatever they're labeling it as, which basically means there are UFOs flying around. Look at the camera footage. Look at how fast they're going. And they presented it out to the entire world last night to see. How many people are talking about that today?
So now...
Nobody. Nobody's talking about it. Hey, aliens are real.
To get on the conspiracy of that, do you find it coincidence that we both watched the Skinwalker Ranch episode where they saw it? On the 21st, they release an episode where they see a UFO twice in the episode, but then, all of a sudden, a couple days later, release that article? Coincidence or just...
When does a coincidence become mathematically impossible?
Exactly. I'm not a mathematician.
I took math in college.
Yeah, me too, but... Bill or Mike got an input on that one?
I got a D in math. No. No, I don't know. I think anybody who doesn't believe there's alien life out there in the cosmos, I think that's just ignorance and vanity. The idea that we are the only sentient life forms in the entire infinite universe is arrogance at least.
Preach, my brother. Preach.
The infinite of space. You can't say there's not something else out there.
Exactly. So
that's the height of human arrogance right there.
It really is. And
the technology that's needed to take us there to actually find that is touched on again in this series. And that's, like I said, is the technology. Where are we not using it enough? Are we not using enough technology yet to get to where we are finding other life forms? Or do we find it not that necessary? Should we be focusing technology in other areas versus this?
What's the name of this series again? I gotta watch this shit.
So it's called The Age of AI, and it's narrated by Robert Downey Jr. And like I said, it starts out with, you know, the first episode, they just kind of go into it. They had will.i.am, the rapper. Had there's a company.
Now you got me.
Yeah. So will.i.am, the rapper, decided to have a digital avatar made of himself. And they had this company come out and took like 1,000 pictures of his entire head and stuff, and then digitally painted it onto a AI model, and then had him record a whole bunch of voices. And then what's funny is you can tell he's a little paranoid about it because he had him do the whole voices recording to build the synthesized version. But when he said it and he did it, he goes, look, you can't make it too real. It still has to sound robotic, because if you can't differentiate between me, and he actually used his mother. He said, if my mother can't understand the difference between me and a computer talking, we're too far. Like, we should not be doing that. And I 100% agreed with that. I'm like, that's kind of scary. Where you
isn't that where movies want to go, though?
Well, yeah.
Well,
for CG purposes.
Couple things on that. One, everyone knows that Marlon Brando had digital rendering of himself made before he died, because even back then he could see that, like, this kind of thing was going to be big in film. So we have that on file. I don't know how good the quality is, but he had a digital rendering of himself made.
I think Paul Walker did the same thing, and that's how they were able to do the Fast and the Furious, right?
Paul Walker was because he has a brother who looks really, really similar to him.
Yeah, that too.
And it was kind of like what they did with Carrie Fisher, but nowadays you can do that with anybody. But I saw a video online where they had this guy who was he was like one of the he was a Holocaust survivor, and they did the same thing with him. They had him sit in a chamber, and they did a digital rendering of him.
It's a great place to put him.
Well, and what they did was they had people come in who could ask this AI version of him questions. They were like history students, and they could ask him questions about his experiences, and it would be able to respond to their questions with scary amount of accuracy. The third thing I was going to say was, I lost it. Oh, I lost
and
it. Damn it.
And then
I'll come back to it. Shit.
littering and.
What about you, Bill? You've been quiet. Where's your opinion on that?
Well, for one thing, I mean, you can't you can't really get
what are we talking about right now, Bill?
We're talking about how cabbage is taking over as the top vegetable in the U.S., and I think that's outrageous.
Listen, that shit's delicious.
Just outrageous.
You're the one that sparked this whole show by wanting to download this show.
That's what I do. I'm a trendsetter. What can I say?
That's what he is.
You're not a finisher.
Nah, he's an instigator. That's all.
I'm sorry. I was updating something on Dexflix.
It's looking at that squirrel over there.
Street Fighter just got loaded up on here.
Is that the Legend of Chun-Li?
No. It's the Van Damme one.
Van Damme one.
Gyre.
I'm going to kick by ass.
Fucking Cammy's sweet ass on there.
Of course.
What's her face?
Kylie Minogue.
Yeah. Also in Biodome.
That is true.
She is in Biodome. Great movie,
but
by the way.
Aliens, man. Yeah.
How much technology do you think we have that might have came from aliens, or do you believe it's just?
I think we're probably looking at a majority of it. I mean, I think to what Mike was saying, like, you got to be pretty damn ignorant to think that we're alone, just because there isn't, physical proof sitting right in front of us that we've interacted with to know that it's here. But I mean, I think the signs are there over the course of time. Like, just, when you look at, ancient stories that were told and how they were depicted, the pyramids, all the way up to current day, and, the technology that we're using, like, we're scratching the surface, and, we've already cut into, what was science fiction 50, 60 years ago, and it's science reality now. We're living it. Like, the communicator from Star Trek, replicators from the same way, we're seeing in 3D, 4D printers, nanotechnology. I mean, the list goes on. Lasers, matter and antimatter. It's there.
Anti-gravity.
We just haven't
magnetic levitation.
We haven't hit that next scientific threshold to cross over where, like, quantum mechanics are fully understood, gravity is fully understood. The thing that still limits us is our sense of time, existing separate from space and matter, and we haven't figured out how to put all that together yet. But when we do, I mean, we'll probably be warping across the galaxies here.
Dex, I want to call back to something that you had brought up earlier. Like, when are we gonna keep expanding upon technology to go out and do things? Mm-hmm. I unfortunately, it becomes a matter of, is it financially, worth it to do something like that? Is anybody going to make money off of traveling to another planet just to see it? Because it's going to cost a lot of money to be able to do it. So if there's no reward for all that hard work and financial aspects of it, I mean, why do you do it? I mean, why does NASA constantly have their budgets cut and not be able to go out and, in the 69 we landed on the moon and we don't go back anymore.
69.
Like, if it's financially worth it, like, why aren't we up there mining the moon for rare metals and precious metals and things like that, or checking out asteroids or planetoids or things like that, to where we could, have some kind of financial recourse for it, or be able to, expand our reach. We build a moon base. Well, it's going to be a lot easier to launch a rocket even further into space when you don't have to overcome the Earth's gravity from it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think a lot of it has to come down to money, unfortunately.
So to actually put what you're talking about, we haven't gone there. one of the episodes, and I feel like I'm almost a YouTube spokesperson at this point for the show, but one of the episodes,
I feel like I wrote
actually,
the show.
Yeah, I mean, but when you, when it comes to it, they're actually, the one episode they were talking about getting to Mars, and then they showed a clip of a team from Penn State and this other team called AI Architecture. They're literally were made a 3D printer that would be sent up to Mars or the moon to habitate it, and have this 3D printer print houses. And Penn State printed one. Penn State printed one out of concrete, and the AI team printed one that they would actually be able to source from Mars, but with the salt and the rock, and they would be able to make their own printing material on Mars. So now they got awarded a ton of money to continue building this technology, and they even said, they're like, we're not there yet, but when we do get to the point where we can land on the Mars, we're going to have the technology to just send there and autonomously just print a community before sending the people up there. Now, once we hit that point, once they can put a hotel and start sending people there as a destination, people are going to want to spend money. Now you're talking uber rich people that are probably going to do this only, because I know my salary is not going to get me to the moon or Mars to go.
Look, I signed up for the Mars One program years ago, so they send me emails.
I did that.
My wife said I can't go, but I signed up before we got married. So,
well, I remember what I was going to say earlier.
Go for it.
The lady who was the voice of the Star Trek computer,
Majel Barrett.
Yeah, recorded like thousands of hours of phonetic samples.
Oh yeah.
So that they can continue to use her voice as the computer, and they can just form whole sentences phonetically accurate still using her voice even after she's she's gone.
That's crazy.
So they did that too. Episode 2, they actually talked about the whole, when you record so much of a person's voice and you have so many of those phonetic sounds, you can generate whatever you want to be said. Mm-hmm. And they showed a patient that had ALS who was recording samples with his voice because of him being disabled. His speech is impaired. And they took a bunch of other people from this ALS project, and by building voice samples from all these people with a disability, they were able to improve the voice recognition of people with disabled, whatever they have, ALS and things like that. They're able to improve voice recognition technology. And then in a reverse sense, they were able to take the guy's old clips. He was from Penn State, went on the Tennessee Titans, had ALS, and now he's like pretty bad. But he was on TV so much, they took his voices, and he can now type on a computer and have his old voice just say what he said, and it sounds almost identical.
Well, it's like whenever you get a new iPhone or a new Android, the first thing they have you do to set up the virtual assistant is they have you say certain sentences and phrases so it can recognize what your voice is going to sound like when it's a very basic form of that phonetic recording, but same kind of thing is it's meant to recognize your voice when it says certain things so that only you can activate Siri.
Yeah,
it's like the same thing. I watched a video last night where they just took from Smash Mouth's All Star, where he says somebody, they put it to the tune of Photograph by Nickelback.
That was hysterical.
It's just the word somebody over and over again, but it's like he's singing Photograph. It's crazy. This is what we can do with technology, people.
Yeah.
Is it but here's the thing. So it brings humor. So is it an overreach or is it worth it?
It's an
attempt
it's
for the lulz,
to keep us entertained and dumb.
It's always for the lulz. Oh man, that's the thing. Technology, you can just keep going back and forth. Is it overused? Is it underused? Where's somewhere that you guys think it's underused? Where are we not using enough technology?
Factories.
Oh man,
that's a good question. Shit.
Factories.
Because it's touched almost everything, like you said, in our lives. You can see technology everywhere. Where are we not using it enough?
Man,
I mean, I figure by now we could have some more, better utensils for eating. I mean, there's got to be something better out there we can do.
Better than...
Yeah, I mean, they
already have a spork.
Yeah, they tried the spork. I mean, you're not finding regular metal sporks, in abundance anywhere. Maybe they're out there. I've never seen one. I think it's a hoax.
I've never seen one either.
No. But yeah, give us some better eating technology. I think I'm sticking with that.
I don't know. That's a good question. I got nothing. I really don't know. That's because, like you said, it is so pervasive now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what part of my life doesn't have some, and not just because I work in broadcasting, but just anybody's life. What part of my life does not have some form of technology integrated with it? It's hard to say nowadays.
Yeah.
Now, how about religion? You go to church, you get like a huge VR head of like God up there actually preaching at you.
Powerful.
Exactly. Like you get rid of the priests altogether. You just put a full VR set up there.
Something that I wondered with the COVID-19 shit. Everybody was talking about like whether or not they're gonna be able to go to church. It's like, you can pray from home.
Yeah,
you don't have to
need to be in a church to pray from home.
Yeah,
you can sign into.
Well, the church is like an antenna. It's going to get your prayers to heaven better.
Exactly.
They got to concentrate everybody's bio forces together.
When you're stuck at home, just pray a little harder.
Yeah.
Sacrilegious asshole.
Pay no attention to this man behind the curtain.
I can tell you some ways I have seen it start to be used better is with schools finally like putting all their chips into the e-learning thing. With my brother and my sister. My brother's in college, my sister's still in high school, and like e-learning and online schooling, all that's been a thing for a while, but it's always something that the schools have kind of half-assed.
Yes,
it was there. They didn't put a lot of effort into it, especially when you start classrooms available. But now people are having, the teachers and the schools are having to give in.
Yeah.
And when we get to the roundtable, something else I wanted to bring up in the same sense is like they have no choice now, and they're starting to realize, oh, this might actually be worth really investing time and money into in the future, because if this is how good we can get it to work now, as half-assed as it is, if we can actually make this work, online schooling might not be such a shit show. Because online schooling is kind of like, you can get an online degree, but it's a pain in the ass.
I think that just kind of ties everything together, like as far as what we were just talking about. It's not, I think we were trying to think about things in our lives that didn't have technology applied to it in some way, but I think that's just about non-existent at this point. I mean, everything has integrated technology in some way. And I think what you're saying is that this caused a lot of businesses and a lot of different services and things like that use technology, but had one foot in the pool, as far as the way that they were handling it. And so I think this forced a lot of businesses, schools especially too, certain businesses to figure out how they can be fully reliant and really test the makeup of their business. So I think we are going to see some change there as far as how fully integrated certain things will become now.
Yeah,
I agree. So on that subject, what else you were saying, Mike, in the roundtable? Let's go ahead and jump into that. What else do you have to discuss on that topic?
So we're finally, after this is a topic that comes up just about every single year, and we start, but this just got dropped by Variety today. So the Oscars for next year are going to be for this year only, allowing films that were released digitally to be in consideration for an Oscar. There are some contingencies with that, like they have to be films that were already slated for theatrical release for this year.
Okay.
Like somebody can't just say, all right, I'm putting out a new movie on Netflix. Like it has to have already had a theatrical release date scheduled. But they said that for the 2021 Oscars, for the 2020 film season, they're going to be allowing films released digitally on VOD to be in consideration for an Oscar. They just have to be submitted to the academies. They have basically their own online streaming service that's only for Academy members. So they're saying that now that they have to be submitted to that streaming service within 60 days of their VOD release. Also, they are doing away with sending out, because what they used to do is everybody in the Academy would get a physical DVD screener of the films in consideration. They're doing away with that altogether now. It's going to be strictly an online process for the viewing and the voting form of the Academy Awards for this film season. And to me, they basically had some emergency meeting and made this decision, but it's one of those things that's like, okay, well, now that you're actually going to do this, if this becomes like really successful, if this works out better than the previous system, could this be something we see start to happen going forward into 2022, to where the Academy Awards could now finally get on the same level as like the Emmys, where they can start including digitally released content into award consideration?
No.
Who are these people?
Yeah, I think
That's a good point.
they're absolutely having to adjust to what's going on right now. But I mean, you have a lot of backlash with that already, with different directors and people out there in Hollywood who don't want, straight to VOD movies being considered, because they want everything out in theaters. The movie theater, the movie going experience is where it's at. Is this going to kill theater chains? Yada yada yada. So I mean, it's going to take a collaborative effort to either vote that in or make sure it doesn't become a regular thing. So it'll be interesting to see if, moving forward after next year's ceremony, if that is going to be more incorporated into the future of just how things are going. But it definitely comes with a lot, though. You're still going to have the older generation who might not be so apt for technological purposes. Yeah. And as those generations die out, it's going to become increasingly more. So you're going to see these big shifts from ways of thinking and ways of living over the next couple decades, and it's going to be a really big culture shift. So it's interesting that you bring that up, Mike.
Something else they're doing is once movie theaters are allowed to reopen, the 7-day, because the old rule is it has to be in theaters in a commercial theater for 7 days and 7 nights in a theater in either New York City or Los Angeles. Once theaters are allowed to reopen, that 7-day window goes back into effect. However, because they know there's going to be a lot of clogging and begging for time, they're going to expand it to theaters in Los Angeles, New York, the Bay Area, Chicago, Miami, and Atlanta.
Well, Texas is opening up their theaters this weekend.
Yeah. The Academy is also combining the 2 sound categories into one, so it won't be sound mixing and sound editing. It'll be best sound. And they are setting up new rules for best original score. So originally the rule had been that in order for a score to be considered original, it has to be at least 60% original music. Now they're adding a new rule that sequels and franchise films, it has to be 80%.
Oh, wow.
And I think a lot of that's because if you look at like a Star Wars, they reuse a lot of the same themes, or a Marvel film. Not that these films ever won a fucking Oscar for this shit, but but because they reuse a lot of similar themes in their music, now they're saying that they're trying to encourage the composers to get more original with the music. If they're doing sequels and franchise films that they still want to be eligible for, because every time a Star Wars movie comes out, it gets nominated for best original score, and who knows how much of that movie is actually, or that music is actually like new music. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all the stuff that came out. Also, this article released the information that when a distributor wants to submit their film to the Academy Awards service for consideration, it costs $12,500.
So you're paying for a chance to win an award.
Yeah, it's like applying for college and you pay $100 for a college application that you might get denied.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
Unless you're the child of Lori Loughlin.
Yeah, unless you're Aunt Becky's daughter.
Aunt Becky
you just got to pretend to be on the rowing team and post a lot of shit on Instagram.
I mean, come on, that's all you had to do. Like shit,
yeah.
Like I clearly didn't have too many options for extended college, but it's like somebody was like, yeah, all you got to do is like pretend to be on the rowing team. I'd be like, dude, I've been fucking rowing since I was 8, man. Like, come on. I know this shit. Like, you got to sell it, you know? Clearly, the child didn't get any of the gifted acting abilities.
What about you, or Sean or Bill? Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Bill?
Nah. That floor's yours.
I've been playing the Final Fantasy VII remake. It's great. I've been trying to limit myself to an hour. Yeah, that's all right. I've been trying to limit myself to an hour a day. I mean, I haven't been playing it every day, but I don't want to fly through this.
Yeah.
Let's see, this game came out in what, 97, the original game?
Yeah.
So, it's
still one of the best video games ever made.
23 years that you've waited for this. I mean, it's a long time coming. I don't want to, blow my proverbial load so quickly. But it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. Any 4-syllable descriptive adjective that I can use to give this game props. Absolutely pick it up. I got the deluxe edition, and then I had it, with everything going on with the coronavirus. All GameStops are being closed and sheltered up and everything. I wanted to make sure that I got the game release day. So I had, I paid $10 extra to have it delivered to my house. So I wound up paying $95 for this fucking game, but worth it.
That's where I'm. That's why I haven't gotten it yet. I've been watching playthroughs on Twitch, and the game, it looks phenomenal.
You haven't been watching playthroughs on the Cinescape Media YouTube channel that I myself.
Watch them every day. I watched 4 different people play through the game at the same time, and each one of them, like, one gets to point A to point B, and then the next one goes from the same point A to point B.
Do you even JRPG, bro? Like, come on.
My thing is
explore everything,
because I know they're releasing it in parts, and I'm curious to see how the pricing is going to be. Subsequent parts, because if it's going to be like $60 minimum per part, I don't want to. I'm not paying $200 for a game I played 20 years ago.
No, it's not the same game, though.
I know it's not the same game. I'm not paying $200 for one video game.
You will.
50 cents for no Coke.
You will. You'll pay it. I'll pay it. I'll gladly pay it.
Square Enix is not a lot of love for Square Enix coming from me. So this seems kind of par for the course for them. But the game looks phenomenal. It looks incredible.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, I don't know. Plus, I got Doom. I got to finish still, and
I figured out I had a DLC in my email inbox the other day that I hadn't claimed. So I claimed that. It's one of the summon materials. I'm like, oh, that's how you get that. I'm like, I thought I paid for this. That's why I got the deluxe edition. I'm like, the whole reason. It's like this email that I didn't even know about.
I got a Twitch loot thing for Doom Eternal, and now my armor looks like a fucking unicorn suit. It's the greatest thing ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my guy has a huge sword.
That's what she said. One playthrough, and it's like he's about to get mugged by these people, and the guy's like, I'm gonna pull out my dagger and try to mug this guy with a sword the size of my first car. This should go over well.
Yeah, good luck.
Excellent. All right. Well, anybody else? Nothing else to say? We'll go ahead and wrap this up here.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and table this discussion. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Don't forget to check us out. Cinescape Media website. We got the social media, Facebook, YouTube. Of course, my show, Suburban Paranormal. Mike, Mixtape Radio. Bill's got who knows what's going on in the works. And, of course, the new Eagle's Nest podcast. So, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.
Deuces.